The chilling, ancient depths of the ironwood forest offered Seren Vale only a fleeting peace. The sun rarely touched the mossy ground, but inside her small cabin, a hearth fire cast a warm, defiant glow against the winter air. Seren sat on the fur rug, bundled in her blue-green shawl, her arms encircling two terrified wolf pups. Her heart, always too open and raw, hammered a painful rhythm against her ribs. She was a rejected Omega, yet these lost souls were proof she had value. The sound arrived first. Not wind, but the heavy, deliberate tread of armored boots crushing the frozen earth. Then, the silhouette of Alpha King Aldric Stormbane filled the clearing. He was immense, a dark fortress of leather and steel, flanked by two massive, grim-faced black wolves. His gaze, cold and imposing, was the very embodiment of the stringent law that had cast Seren out years ago. Omega Vale. Aldric's voice was a deep command, devoid of warmth. I have tracked the missing pups from 3 noble houses to this den. You are charged with high treason and disrupting the royal bloodlines. Yield them now. Seren tightened her arms around the whimpering pups. Her gentle compassion hardened into fierce defiance. They are not stolen, King Stormbane, she said, her voice trembling but steady. They chose me. I am the only one who has protected them. Aldric strode closer, the powerful male essence of a seasoned warrior overwhelming the tiny cabin. He saw not a protector, but an unfit female breaking the rule of the packs, and he raised his hand, not in aggression, but in an absolute gesture of seizure, ready to enforce the law, and it was too much. The pups cried out, their distress amplifying Seren's deep empathy. Instead of the king's blade falling, a sudden, blinding surge of golden light erupted from her palms. It wasn't a fire or a flare, but a nimbus of pure, protective warmth that enveloped the pups and momentarily stopped Aldric mid-motion. The raw power, her hidden gift, was revealed, and it was focused entirely on keeping her loved ones safe. Aldric froze, his eyes wide, realizing this was no mere witch. The law he followed had just been defied by something ancient, radiant, and utterly undeniable. The moment the golden light receded, leaving the cabin air thick with the scent of pine and strange power, Aldric slowly lowered his arm. He didn't move to seize the Omega or the pups. Instead, his gaze, which had been fixed on the blinding light, now settled on Seren's wide, fearful eyes. His silence was heavier than any shout. "What was that?" he asked, his voice rougher now, stripped of its judicial authority. Seren clutched the pups tighter. "A mother's protection," she whispered. "The only defense I have left against the law that cast me out." Aldric dismissed his guards with a curt gesture, the 2 black wolves receding to the edge of the clearing. He stepped closer, the rich scent of leather, iron, and mountain pine filling her senses. "I expected to find a monster, a witch who stole my future alphas. I find a broken Omega with a secret." He pointed to the smallest pup, which had begun shivering again. "Is that protection or some foul magic? The pup sickens even now." Seren immediately shifted her focus, her deep compassion overriding her terror. The child's skin felt hot, its breathing shallow. This was not normal fever. She needed to act. Ignoring the king, she gently laid the pup on a thick blanket near the fire. She closed her eyes, reaching for the warmth that resided deep in her chest, the gift she had been taught to fear as her fatal flaw. When she opened her eyes, soft, golden light emanated again, this time focused entirely on her hands as she rested them on the sick pup's tiny body. She felt the illness, a dark, cold tangle, and began to weave her light through it, unraveling the corruption with focused, tender effort. The sickness vanished, and the pup's breathing evened out, its color returning. Seren sagged back, trembling with exhaustion and terror, realizing only then that she wasn't alone. She looked up. Aldric Stormbane was frozen near the hearth, his beard dusted with snow, his gold-flecked gaze fixed on her glowing hands with an expression she had never seen. Not anger, but absolute awe and a dawning, terrifying recognition. "That is no curse," Aldric breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. "That is the call of the First Mother, the healing light of the first wolves. I've been searching for it for 30 years, and it brought me to a rejected Omega." The king knelt before her, and the distance between them shattered. Aldric's sudden realization that she held the mythical healing power sent a jolt through Seren, one that warred with the primal fear her people had instilled in her. "First Mother, that is not me. I am broken." "I don't understand," Seren whispered, pulling her hands back into her shawl. "They called it witchcraft. They said I was defective because I could never shift. That gift, it's what they cast me out for." Aldric ignored her self-doubt. He reached out and, with slow, deliberate care, took her trembling hands in his large, scarred ones. The moment their skin connected, a violent, blinding shock like lightning shot through Seren. She gasped, unable to pull away. Everything around them, the firelight, the shadows, the silence, seemed to focus into the point where their flesh met. Through the contact, she felt it, a furious, possessive current rushing from him into her, anchoring her, pulling at the very core of her soul. It wasn't gentle, but overwhelming, demanding, and utterly complete. It was an involuntary, undeniable recognition. Aldric's golden eyes flared, momentarily molten with an emotion so fierce it looked like pain. "You feel that?" he breathed, the words escaping him like a confession. "The fire, the recognition. I've tracked reports for months, followed trails of lost pups across territories, but I only found the answer here in the arms of an outcast Omega." "What is this?" Seren managed, her heart hammering against her ribs, her breath catching in her throat. "The mate bond," Aldric stated, his voice now a low, rough growl of absolute certainty. He was staring at their joined hands, his expression a mix of wonder and dread. "The one my wolf has waited 30 years for. A bond strong enough to defy the very law I swore to uphold." He didn't ask her. He told her, "You're coming with me to the Citadel, as my queen." He released her hands instantly, as if the contact might consume them both, leaving her skin tingling and her heart racing with terrifying, exhilarating awareness. He had claimed her with more than just words. He had claimed her with his soul. Aldric left the cabin abruptly, ducking through the door flap and leaving Seren reeling from the sudden, powerful knowledge of the bond. Her heart was still beating a furious rhythm in her chest, but the overwhelming sense of loneliness that had haunted her exile was gone, replaced by a fierce, unfamiliar warmth. She spent the short night listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the king's camp, the low calls of the guards, the distant howls of the wolves on patrol. She must have finally slept, because she was woken not by noise, but by a sudden, intense, emotional spike through the fledgling bond. Fear. A small whimper pierced the air. Across the cabin, the youngest pup, little Ren, was thrashing in a nightmare. Seren quickly gathered the child close. "Shh, little bird. I'm here. You're safe. The black shadows." Ren whimpered into Seren's shoulder, They were chasing me. They wanted to eat me up." Before Seren could offer more comfort, the door flap moved, and Aldric was there. He entered slowly, his presence filling the cabin, his eyes sweeping the area for any physical threat before landing on Seren and the crying pup. In the dying light of the hearth, he looked less like the king and more like a simple, worried wolf. He knelt beside them. Ren's cries softened, and she blinked up at the imposing warrior. "You're the Wolf King," she said, tremulously. "Are you going to let the shadows take us away from Seren?" Something in Aldric's harsh expression softened, echoing the tenderness Seren had felt through the bond. He looked at Seren over the child's head, and his eyes, visible even in the dimness, seemed to glow. "No, little one," he promised, his voice low and firm. "I'm going to keep you both safe." Ren settled between them, her small hand clutching Seren's shawl. The cabin fell silent. Aldric reached out a trembling hand and gently brushed his fingers against Seren's cheek, just beneath her eye. The touch was feather light, yet it felt like a brand, igniting a heat low in Seren's belly. A sound rumbled from Aldric's chest, something deep and possessive. Then, he jerked back as if burned, rising quickly. "Forgive me." His voice was strained. "I need to go. We leave at dawn." He was gone before Seren could speak, leaving her with a racing heart and the undeniable knowledge that the man who had claimed her, without consent, was now completely consumed by her. The king's camp broke at the first hint of dawn. Seren found herself mounted on a dark mare, Ren secured in front of her, surrounded by Aldric's imposing armored warriors. The distance Aldric kept was a physical manifestation of the emotional struggle she had witnessed the night before. He rode at the head of the column, his back rigid and powerful, never once looking back. Yet Seren could feel him, a steady, warm pressure in her chest, the constant hum of the newly forged mate bond that linked their souls, invisible but undeniable. When he moved, something in her shifted. When his mood darkened, shadows touched her own mind. "He stares at you when you're not looking," Ren observed, her voice holding the frank, knowing innocence only children possess. Heat crept up Seren's neck. "Hush, little bird," she murmured, tearing her gaze away from the broad set of Aldric's shoulders. They rode for hours, the terrain growing treacherous as the lowlands gave way to the rocky, high passes of Aldric's northern citadel territory. By midday, the wind cut like a knife, and Seren shivered despite the thick furs. Then, Aldric raised his hand, and the entire column halted instantly. "What is wrong?" Seren asked the stern-faced warrior beside her. "Ambush territory," the guard replied, his voice grim. "Stay close to the king." The attack was instantaneous. Wolves, not shifted men but feral rogues, exploded from the dense tree line. They were lean, desperate, and numerous, their pelts muddy gray and their yellow eyes hungry. Aldric's seasoned warriors shifted mid-stride, transforming into massive, disciplined black and gray wolves that met the enemy in a savage blur of claws and teeth. But there were too many rogues. One gray beast slipped past the line, lunging directly for Seren and Ren. Seren kicked out desperately, catching the wolf in the snout, but it barely registered the blow. Time slowed as she felt Ren's small arms tighten around her waist. She saw the death coming and, driven by absolute terror and primal love, the single word blazed through her mind: "No." With it came the light. It was no longer the gentle golden warmth of healing, but a blinding, furious fire, erupting from her palms in a wave of power. It struck the rogue mid-leap, searing its pelt. The wolf shrieked in agony and fled, smoke rising from its singed form, and the remaining rogues scattered into the woods. Silence fell, broken only by the harsh breathing of the survivors. Seren stared at her hands, which were now pulsing with a residual light. Aldric, already shifting back to human form, strode toward her through the carnage. His face was a mask of awe and fierce urgency, his golden eyes fixed solely on her. "What was that?" he demanded, his voice thick and hoarse, his gaze searching her face. "You called the light as a weapon." I don't know," Seren stammered, her body trembling with spent power. "I just needed to save Ren." Aldric was close enough to touch, his battle-scratched body radiating heat and possessiveness. "The old gift has many faces," he rasped, his eyes burning into hers. Healing, the call, and the battle light, the warrior blessing of the first wolves. It manifests only when the gifted one's heart is desperate to protect. He didn't give her time to think. One massive, trembling hand cupped her face. A deep growl, possessive, not threatening, rumbled from his chest. "Mine," he breathed against her throat, and his teeth grazed her skin where her neck met her shoulder. The world exploded into sensation. Pain and pleasure merged. Seren cried out as Aldric bit down, not just claiming her body, but flooding her with his essence, his emotions. Fierce protectiveness, desperate longing, and a profound, terrifying love. The mate bond solidified, burning the mark of the king's claim into her skin. They were bound, forever. The journey to Aldric's citadel became a blur of intimate, charged glances and necessary physical distance. Aldric's warriors had witnessed the claiming. Word would travel like wildfire that the Alpha King had taken a mate, an Omega who couldn't shift, yet commanded light. Seren felt the stares, but the bond, now intensely pulsing, was her only reality. It hummed a warm, constant rhythm in her chest, allowing her to sense Aldric's conflicted emotions. His guilt over the non-consensual claiming, his ferocious protectiveness, and an underlying tenderness that made her ache. "He loves you," Ren declared matter-of-factly on the third day, seated comfortably in front of Seren. "The Wolf King. He looks at you like Papa used to look at Mama." Seren pulled the child closer, momentarily unsettled. "How do you remember that, little one? You were so young." "I remember everything," Ren said simply. "That's why I found you, you know. I could feel you calling, like a candle in the dark." Before Seren could press that unsettling statement, the column crested a high, rocky ridge, and the citadel, carved into the heart of a mountain, its stone spires reaching toward the clouds, spread before them. Aldric Stormbane appeared instantly at her side. "Home," he said, the first direct word spoken since the claiming. "It's magnificent," Seren whispered. "It's yours now." His voice was quiet, weighty. "Everything I have, everything I am, the bond makes it so." Seren turned to face him fully. "You say that like it's a punishment." "For you it may be." Pain flickered in his golden eyes. "I've bound you to a throne, Seren. To a war. To enemies you cannot yet imagine. You didn't choose this. Did you?" The question hung sharp in the cold air. "The bond, the claiming. Did you want it?" Aldric was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and cupped her face in his gauntlet-free palm, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "I have wanted nothing else since the moment I saw you." The words were raw and true. Seren leaned into his touch, and through the bond, she felt his surprise, his hope, and his terrified joy merge into one overwhelming wave. "Then stop apologizing," she said, her voice steady, "and started teaching me how to be a queen." They entered the citadel as the winter sun set, casting the fortress in shades of iron and amber. The streets were lined with wolves who had come to see their king's new mate. Some cheered, others stared with open suspicion. The throne room was carved from black stone. Here, Aldric's council waited, powerful alphas, their faces ranging from hostile to greedy. "My king!" A rival alpha, Lord Rexton, stepped forward. "Word reached us of your claiming. Is it true you bonded with an Omega, one who cannot even shift?" "It is true," Aldric's voice carried like thunder. "She is my mate, chosen by fate and sealed by bond. You will treat her with the respect due a queen." Rexton laughed openly. "Forgive me, my king, but surely you cannot expect us to accept this defective bloodline." "The bloodlines," Aldric's interruption was soft, dangerous, "will be strengthened. She carries the call of the First Mother, healing magic, battle light, powers we thought lost forever." Silence fell. Then Rexton smiled, a malicious, knowing grin that sent a chill down Seren's spine. "Then she must be studied, examined. Such power cannot be left uncontrolled." "I invoke the right of grievance." He locked eyes with Seren. "Let the council's seers verify your gift is pure, and not the dark sorcery we suspect." Seren felt Aldric's fury swell through the bond, felt him preparing to refuse, to fight. But she also saw the doubt Rexton had planted among the other council members. "I'll do it," Seren said, stepping forward. "Let them see. Let them know what I am." The examination was set for the following dawn. That night, Seren paced the spacious chambers Aldric had assigned her, the fear clawing at her chest, amplified by the anxiety she felt pulsing through the bond from Aldric. Near midnight, the door opened quietly, and Aldric entered, his face drawn with worry. "You should rest," he said, his voice low. "So should you," Seren replied, crossing the distance between them. She went willingly into his arms, pressing her face against his chest, inhaling the reassuring scent of pine, rain, and battle-ready leather. "I won't let them hurt you," he murmured against her hair, holding her tightly. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I will protect you." "I know." They stood wrapped together, drawing strength from the bond that pulsed between them. When Aldric finally pulled back, his eyes were bright with fierce emotion. "Sleep now," he commanded softly. "I will stay until you do." Seren lay down, and true to his word, Aldric sat beside her, his large, warm hand covering hers, his presence an unshakable comfort in the dark. As she drifted toward sleep, she heard him whisper something in the old tongue, words that sounded like a warrior's prayer and a lover's promise intertwined. She awoke hours later in the ancient, subterranean examination chamber, carved from stone so old it seemed to breathe. Seren stood in the center of a ritual circle, surrounded by 7 hooded seers whose eyes gleamed faintly silver in the torchlight. Aldric had been forbidden to enter, but she could feel his distress through the bond, a constant, heavy pressure against her ribs. "We will see your truth, child," the eldest seer's voice echoed strangely. "Light or dark, gift or curse, nothing can be hidden from the sight." They began to chant. The magic hit Seren like a wave, cold and probing, pushing past her defenses. She gasped as her memories surged, her childhood isolation, the day her pack declared her defective, and her lonely exile. Then the memories of the lost pups, the healing, the comforting, the desperate need to protect. She has known pain, rejection, cruelty, one seer muttered. Yet she did not become cruel. She protected, healed, sheltered the lost. Another confirmed. The probing deepened, reaching for the core of her power. Seren cried out as her light surged in response, meeting the cold magic with a golden blaze that lit the entire chamber. There, the eldest seer breathed. There it is, the blessing of the First Mother. The chanting changed, rising in pitch, and suddenly Seren saw visions that were not her own. A woman with her face stood on a desolate battlefield, starlight pouring from her hands. Wolves rallied behind her, cities burned, and through it all, a prophecy, spoken in voices like thunder. When the lost are gathered home, and the gifted claims the throne, light and shadow both shall rise, to meet the darkness in the skies. The vision shattered. Seren fell to her knees, gasping, as the seers stumbled backward, their faces etched with awe and fear. Child, do you understand what you are? The eldest seer asked, kneeling before her. You are not merely gifted. You are the gifted one, the one our people have waited for since the old ways were lost, the one who will gather the lost and stand against the coming darkness. Seren shook her head, terrified. No, I'm just an Omega. I can't be. The chamber doors burst open. Aldric strode in, ignoring the protesting guards, his face wild with worry. He scanned her body for injury. She passed, my king, the eldest seer announced before Aldric could speak. More than passed. Your mate is the one from the prophecy. She will save us all, or doom us. The news spread through the citadel like wildfire. Within hours, wolves who had sneered at the concept of an Omega Queen were bowing in the streets, but Seren found no comfort in their reverence. The prophecy's words echoed in her mind. Light and shadow both shall rise. What does it mean? She asked Aldric that evening, pacing their shared chambers. What darkness is coming? I don't know, Aldric said, catching her hands and stilling her anxious movement. But whatever it is, we will face it together. A sharp knock interrupted them. Brennan, Aldric's captain, entered with a grim expression. My king, we've received word from the eastern border. 3 villages destroyed in the night. No survivors, except the children, who were found wandering alone, unable to speak of what they witnessed. Seren's stomach turned. The children were left alive. Why? We don't know, Brennan hesitated. But there's more. The survivors are being brought here. When they heard where they were going, they all said the same thing. What? Aldric demanded. They want to see the Lady of Light, Brennan finished, his voice hushed. They say she called them home. The children arrived 3 days later, 17 of them, ranging from toddlers to adolescents, their eyes haunted but dry. The moment they entered the citadel, they made their way directly to Seren, drawn as if by invisible strings. You're here, a small boy whispered, clutching her shawl. We heard you calling. Even when the shadow wolves came, we heard you. Shadow wolves? Seren knelt to his level. What do you mean, little one? The dark ones. The boy trembled. They killed everyone except us. They said we were marked, that we belonged to the Lady of Light, and they couldn't touch us. Seren exchanged a horrified glance with Aldric. Someone was orchestrating this. Someone who knew about her gift, about the lost children who found their way to her. It's Rexton. He's behind this. The certainty struck her with sickening clarity. But why? What does Rexton gain from killing villages and leaving children alive? Aldric's voice was tight with controlled fury. The answer came to Seren with a terrifying realization. Me. He's drawing me out. Every orphaned pup is a thread he's tying to me, making me responsible, making me come to them. She looked at the children surrounding her, their trusting faces reaching for her warmth. He's building an army of hostages. That night, Seren woke to agony. Pain ripped through her body, centering on the claiming mark at her throat. She tried to scream but couldn't draw breath. Her bones felt like they were splintering, her muscles tearing, her very soul being wrenched in two. "Seren!" Aldric was instantly there, gathering her in his arms, his voice raw with terror. "What's happening? Talk to me!" But she couldn't speak, only burn. Through the haze of torment, she felt something shifting inside her. Something that had been dormant her entire life, finally stirring awake. Her wolf. The realization struck her. She was shifting. After years of being declared defective, her wolf was finally trying to emerge, and it was killing her. The pain lasted 3 days. The excruciating pain lasted 3 days. Seren drifted in and out of consciousness, her body racked with spasms as her nascent wolf fought desperately to break free. Even as her healing gift, the Starlight instinctively battled the transformation. Meren, the king's physician, and the seers worked tirelessly. "Her gift is fighting the transformation," Meren explained grimly to Aldric on the second night. "The healing light keeps trying to repair what the shift is breaking. They are at war inside her." "Then stop the healing!" Aldric's voice was ragged. He hadn't slept, leaving her side only when physically forced. "We can't," Meren replied, her face grave. "The gift isn't something she controls. It's instinct. Self-preservation. It won't stop trying to save her, even if saving her means killing her." Through the bond, Seren felt Aldric's anguish like a second desperate heartbeat. She wanted to comfort him, to tell him she was still fighting, but her voice wouldn't cooperate. All she could do was endure the agonizing internal civil war. On the third morning, the pain receded enough for her to open her eyes. Aldric was instantly beside her, his face haggard and his eyes red-rimmed. "Seren, can you hear me?" "Yes." The word came out as a raw croak. "What happened?" "Your wolf tried to emerge." He took her hand, pressing it to his lips. "But your gift fought back. You've been unconscious for 3 days." 3 days? Seren tried to sit up, regretting it instantly as every muscle screamed in protest. "The children? The new ones, are they safe?" "Ren has been caring for them." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "She's rather terrifying when she takes charge." Despite everything, Seren managed a weak cough of laughter. Aldric helped her drink honeyed water. "There's something else." His expression darkened. "While you were unconscious, we captured one of Rexton's scouts. He talked." "What did he say?" "Rexton isn't working alone. He's allied with the Shadow Court, an ancient faction that wants to restore the old ways through blood and conquest. They believe your gift is the key to awakening something dark, something that has been sleeping since the first wolves walked." A chill traced Seren's spine. The prophecy. Light and shadow both shall rise. "Yes." Aldric's jaw tightened. "They want to use you. Your light can apparently unlock the shadow. 2 sides of the same power kept separate for millennia. And the children? Leverage. They knew you'd never abandon the lost. Every child they orphan is another chain binding you to their game." Fury, cold and hard, sparked in Seren's chest. "Then we end it. We find Rexton, and we stop him." You can barely stand. Then help me stand." She gripped his arm, forcing herself upright through sheer will. "Those children are my responsibility. I won't let them be used as weapons against me." Aldric stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled, and it transformed his face from stern king to devoted mate. "Have I mentioned that I love you?" The words struck Seren like lightning. Through the bond, she felt the truth of them, the depth and the permanence. "No," she whispered. "You haven't. I love you." He cradled her face in his hands. "I love your courage and your compassion. I love that you make me want to be worthy of you." Tears spilled down Seren's cheeks. "I love you too," she said, before adding with a faint smile, "even though you're infuriating and overprotective." He kissed her then, gentle at first, reverent, but quickly deepening into a desperate confirmation. Through the bond, their emotions merged. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, a commotion erupted outside. Brennan burst through the door without knocking. "My king! Lord Rexton's army is marching on the citadel. They'll reach the gates by nightfall." Aldric was on his feet instantly, the tender lover replaced by the warrior king. "How many?" 3,000 at least." Brennan's face was pale. "And something else. Shadow wolves. Dozens of them." "Shadow wolves are legend," Aldric said sharply. "They were legend," Brennan swallowed. "They're not anymore." Seren forced herself to stand, leaning against Aldric. "Then I need to face them." "Absolutely not!" Aldric whirled on her. "You're in no condition." "The prophecy said I would stand against the darkness." She met his eyes steadily. "Maybe this is what it meant. Those children didn't find their way to me by accident, Aldric. I was meant to be here with you, for this moment." The battle preparations consumed the afternoon. Seren watched from the high walls as Aldric's warriors assembled, their wolves magnificent in the dying light. The children had been moved to the deepest, safest chambers guarded by Merrin and the king's most trusted soldiers. Ren, however, refused to go. "My place is with you," she insisted, her small chin set stubbornly. "I'm not afraid." "I know you're not, little bird." Seren knelt to meet her eyes. "But I need you to do something important. If anything happens to me, you have to keep the other children calm. Can you do that?" Ren's lip trembled, but she nodded. As the sun touched the horizon, Lord Rexton's army appeared at the edge of the valley. Even from this distance, Seren could see the wrongness of them. The shadow wolves moved like smoke given form, their eyes red embers in the gathering dark. Aldric appeared at her side, clad in full battle armor, his expression carved from stone. "Whatever happens tonight," he said quietly, gripping her hand, "know that finding you was the greatest gift of my life." "Don't talk like that," Seren returned, squeezing his hand fiercely. "We're both surviving this." "I will do everything in my power to make that true," he replied, his smile sad. The first howl split the night and the battle began. The clash of armies shook the very stones of the citadel. Seren stood on the battlements, her hands pressed to the ancient walls, feeling the vibration of thousands of wolves fighting for survival. Aldric led the charge himself, his black wolf form a shadow of death among the enemy ranks. Through the bond, Seren felt his fierce joy in combat, his determination, and beneath it all, his fear for her safety. But the shadow wolves were something else entirely. They moved through Aldric's warriors like water through sand, their forms shifting and reforming, impossible to kill. For everyone that fell, it seemed to rise again. darkness stitching its wounds closed. "They're not truly alive." The eldest seer appeared at Seren's side. "They are constructs, animated by the shadow magic Rexton has awakened. Your mate cannot defeat them with teeth and claws alone." "Then what will defeat them?" "Light." The seer's silver eyes met hers. "Your light. It is the only thing that can dispel the shadow permanently." Seren looked at her hands. Since her failed transformation, the gift had been unpredictable, surging and fading without warning. She didn't even know if she could summon it now. "I have to try." She moved toward the stairs leading down to the battlefield. "Wait." The seer caught her arm. "There's something you should know. Your wolf, the one that tried to emerge, she is still there. Still waiting." "I know, but she's killing me. My gift won't let her through." "Because you're fighting yourself." The seer's grip tightened. "Your gift isn't separate from your wolf, child. They are two halves of the same soul. The reason you couldn't shift before wasn't because you were broken. It was because your power was too great. It needed time and the anchor of the bond before your wolf could contain it. I mean, if you stop fighting, if you let your wolf and your gift merge instead of war, you might become something this world has never seen. Or I might die." "Yes," the seer released her. "The choice is yours." Seren descended into the chaos. The courtyard was a nightmare of blood and shadow. She pushed through it all, following the bond toward Aldric, guided by the thread that connected their souls. She found him surrounded. 5 shadow wolves circled him, their red eyes burning. Aldric was wounded, deep gashes across his flank, his movements slowing, his strength fading. "No!" The scream tore from Seren's throat. The shadow wolves turned toward her, and in their eyes she saw recognition, anticipation. "There you are." Rexton's voice echoed across the courtyard as he emerged from the darkness. "I knew you'd come eventually. The lost pups called to you. Now the lost king calls to you. You can't help yourself, can you? You have to save everyone." "Let him go." Seren's voice was steady. "This is between us." "It is far bigger than us." Rexton spread his arms. "The Shadow Court has waited millennia for someone like you. Your light is the key that unlocks the darkness." He gestured, and the shadow wolves lunged toward Aldric with lethal intent. Time stopped. Seren felt everything crystallize. Her love for Aldric, her devotion to the children, her fury at Rexton. And beneath it all, she felt her wolf stirring, no longer fighting, but waiting, hoping. "Let me in," a voice whispered from the depths of her soul. "Let us be one." Seren closed her eyes and surrendered. The pain was beyond anything she had experienced. Her bones shattered and reformed. Her skin ripped and sealed itself with fur the color of starlight. But this time, her gift didn't fight. It flowed into the transformation, golden light threading through every cell until wolf and power merged into something new. When Seren opened her eyes, she saw the world differently. She howled, and the sound was a weapon. Starlight erupted from her in waves, pure and blinding, washing across the battlefield. Where it touched the shadow wolves, they dissolved like smoke in the sun. Rexton screamed in fury, launching himself toward her, but Aldric intercepted him. The 2 wolves clashed with savage intensity. Then, Rexton twisted free and plunged a blade of shadow into Aldric's chest. The bond shattered. Seren felt it like her own death. Pain exploded through her, driving her to the ground as Aldric collapsed, the darkness spreading from the wound. She crawled toward him, her starlight form dissolving back into human as grief overwhelmed everything else. "No." She gathered him in her arms, pressing her hands to the wound. "Please, don't leave me." The shadow poison was consuming him too fast. Through the broken bond, she felt his life fading. "Run, please." His voice was barely a whisper. "I'm not leaving you. I love you. I'm not letting you go." She reached for her gift, but it guttered weakly, exhausted from the transformation. "Not everything," her wolf whispered. "The bond is wounded, not broken. Claim him back." Seren bent over his throat, finding the spot where neck met shoulder and bit down with everything she had. Light exploded between them. She poured her essence, her gift, her very soul, through the bond. Where light touched darkness, the poison burned away. Where her love touched his fading spirit, it anchored him, pulling him back. "Mine," she thought fiercely. "You are mine, and I will not let you go." "Yours," came the response, weak but real. "Always yours." Aldric's eyes snapped open, burning gold with renewed life. The bond reformed, stronger than before, two souls welded completely together. Rexton stared in disbelief. "Impossible! The shadow blade never fails." Seren rose to her feet, Aldric beside her, their hands intertwined. Light radiated from both of them now. "Your shadow has no power here anymore." Rexton lunged, but Aldric moved faster. One strike, precise and final, and Rexton fell. The battle ended instantly. Without Rexton and his shadow wolves, the enemy army scattered, fleeing into the night. Seren turned into Aldric's arms, burying her face in his chest, feeling his heartbeat align with hers. "You saved me," he murmured against her hair. "We saved each other." When dawn broke over the citadel, it found a world transformed. Seren stood on the highest balcony, the children gathered around her feet. Ren pressed against her side, Aldric's arm wrapped around her waist. Below them, the pack howled their greeting to the sun, celebrating their king, their Queen of Starlight, and the miracle they had witnessed. "What happens now?" Ren asked, looking up at Seren with wondering eyes. "Now we rebuild," Seren smiled, feeling the warmth of the bond humming in her chest. "We gather the lost. We protect the weak, and we make sure no pup ever feels alone again." "And the prophecy?" Aldric asked quietly. "Light and shadow both shall rise." "The darkness will always exist," Seren said, meeting his eyes. "But so will the light. As long as we stand together, we can face whatever comes." "Together, then always," Aldric agreed. When he kissed her, the children cheered, and in the depths of her soul, Serene's wolf howled with joy. She had spent her whole life being told she was broken, defective, and worthless. But the truth was something far more beautiful. She had never been broken. She had been waiting for the lost to find her, waiting for her power to bloom, waiting for the mate whose soul matched her own. And now, surrounded by her pack, her children, her king, Seren finally understood what she was. She was home.